Okay, guys. So today we'll be reacting to Math levels of thinking. This is gonna be not sure how long this reaction is actually gonna be, but let's see. I'm genuinely curious. I've always been curious about stuff like this. So having a whole 26-minute and 59-second video, that's a dream for me. Let's play it.
So what the hell is this all about? This video is about levels of thinking. It is theoretical, which is fascinating, and it also has colorful jokes. I use this diagram a lot in my videos because it helps explain some of the wild things that people say and do. It's based on the work of several researchers. I'm trying to make it easier to read for a wider audience. This is my interpretation of a model of consciousness that I studied. It includes quadrants, levels, lines, states, and types. Today I'm talking about levels. I want to make a big, long video explaining each level in detail, but for now I'm just going to do this short version to get it out of the way and get the ball rolling. But before we get started, here are some misspelled vegetables, because I'm told that it helps if I'm cute. Here's a cactus.
Oh,
So
those
these
fonts are
levels are
actually pretty
stages
cool.
of psychological development. They have been studied by numerous researchers. Some of the most famous models come from Jean Piaget, here's a snapshot of his work, and Abraham Maslow, who had the hierarchy of needs. Everybody is born down here, and nearly everybody gets up to at least this stage by adulthood. There are many factors that determine how you will develop and when, including your surroundings, your choices, your culture, and the brain you were born with. These are the quadrants. They are different ways of looking at reality. In this case, this would be your mind, your brain, your culture, and your society. They all happen at the same time because the mind is the brain, and culture is a lot of minds, and society is what those minds do. I should also say that people are never really in a level. You just slowly develop the ability to think at higher levels as you gain experience, but we all use the lower levels every day. When you have to use the bathroom, for example, that's a level 1 process. It's not a complex style of thought, it's just a feeling or an urge. So some people make it up to higher stages, and some people never do. Most people on Earth spend most of their time in these 4 stages, and this one is only very common in modernized places. And it's the first stage where you can adopt a world-centered level of understanding, which means understanding how people think the way they do based on where they're from.
Okay.
Before that level, there are right and wrong ways of thinking, so you would either be doing it right or you're not, and then they would say you're either doing it right or you're not. After that, it's
This is an interesting thought, right? Because in reality, it just so happens that nobody can be truly correct, not in a sense that's so objective you can never deny it. Because anything can be denied. Even things in science can be denied. Because science is like the study of the universe. People right now are denying science and calling it like magic or dark magic or the work of the devil. A lot of religious people anyway, and some people just don't like science because they're like particularly in the medical field, because they're like, yeah, it can help with this and that, sure, however there's probably other alternative ways of doing this, because the government is trying to leech me of all my money and stuff, and medical care is super expensive and stuff. So there's always a way to rebuke something. In reality, there's no way of having everybody accept one thing as objectively true. Now, to be fair, objectivity does not care for the individual. Objectivity is just the way of things happening. Objectivity is just how things are. But because we're human and we're so limited in our way of thinking, we can never truly grasp at objectivity in any way that would be truly meaningful. We can use laws in equations, in physics, in math, in medicine. We can use properties of things to help create other things that can then help us, right? But to know the meaning of those things is a bit more difficult, because humans, we do derive meaning. We like having things make sense or having things have meaning. But let's not go on that rant right now. All I'm saying is it's one person's belief against another person's belief. At the end of the day, you're just gonna have to accept that you cannot change people. People will think what they want. You cannot truly change people. People can change themselves. They sometimes need a push to help change themselves, but generally, how you should be thinking about it is people change over time naturally. It's not necessarily you who is changing them. However, your actions may push them to change. So you're part of the process, but you're not the one who's actually changing them. Tough. I was gonna say something else, but then I forgot. So let's get back into the video. Did I forget? Did I forget? What was I gonna? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, my bad. My bad. It fell.
It's more like, well, maybe I would think that way if I was from there, or maybe I would be more like you if I lived your life. That's
Yeah, right. I was going to talk about perspective. It's all perspective based. Everything is subjective right now, especially when it comes to people and your understanding of the world. It is very you should how you should approach it is you shouldn't necessarily believe everything you hear. However, you should take pieces of information from everything, learn from systems and such, from every system, because a lot of things hold truth. It might not be objective truth, but everything holds a certain level of truth to it. And saying everything holds a certain level of truth to it is untrue, because that would nothing is so objective in the universe that you can say always. Usually, you can say a lot of the time, most of the time, as far as we've seen, but it's not like you can say everything or all the time, or I will never, or this will never happen. Things like that. They're too concrete. They're too certain. Where the universe is a very uncertain thing, and it has laws and stuff that can help us predict certain things that will happen with the universe with a certain degree of certainty, but not 100% certainty, because again, the universe is a very chaotic place in a sense.
where global thinking begins. Speaking of global thinking, this is my first sponsored video. It's brought to you by Atlas VPN, which allows you to access all the stuff you like from all over the globe. It feels illegal, but it's not. With Atlas VPN, you can just go, sorry, I'm totally in America right now. It's like a tiny little embassy. Atlas has the best VPN deal on the market. With the Black Friday price cut, it is $1.70 a month with 6 months extra for free, which also feels illegal and is not. Check the video description for the link. Atlas VPN makes you anonymous, which is a big deal for me. I do not need people knowing whose order this is. Give me the regular price, please. Atlas also stops ads and malware, it blocks malicious links, ads, and trackers, and it notifies you when someone tries to steal your data. You want to keep your data, right? I do. You want better deals on shopping and subscriptions? You want to cover unlimited devices? You want to hide from the Illuminati? Get the Black Friday price cut. $1.70 a month, 6 months extra for free. 30-day money-back guarantee, protect your privacy, other benefits, ridiculously low price. Click the link in the video description below. Limited time offer. I hope it's also a limited time that we stay in these lower levels of thinking. Let's talk about what they are and how they work and how to move on. Before I get started, I should say that higher does not always mean better.
True.
Some people watch my videos where I talk about my mistakes and they say, oh, you think you're at a high level? You sound like a jerk. But higher doesn't mean better person. It means more aware. So here's the lower level of awareness, seeing things. And then as you go higher in the levels of awareness, it becomes...
Uh, speaking on seeing things, there's an interesting thing. That's kind of like direct realism versus indirect realism. Realism can also be translated as naive realism, where you see a thing and you think you're interpreting that thing as it is, as it objectively is. Whereas in indirect realism, you see a thing and then you're like, that is simply a representation of what my brain can handle. It's basically my brain interpreting that thing in a way that it can handle, or in a way that makes sense to it. You see, in a way that it can process. So that's what that image reminded me of. And I'm sweating. I am sweating. Why am I sweating? You know, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's keep it going. It seems like the one at the bottom is direct realism, also known as naive realism, and this one is like indirect realism, where you start to see things a bit differently.
Much more complex. You're seeing people, seeing almost into infinity. And so when I make mistakes in here, I usually know exactly why they're happening. I usually can say things like, I choose women who probably will not stick around. Why? Because I don't think I can support them anyway. Well, why does that matter? Well, usually most of them want a higher level of support that I can provide. And why does that matter? Well, it doesn't feel good when they leave because I can't support them. Okay, well, why do those feelings matter? Can you change it some other way? Can you get a better job or something? Well, I tried to do that. I'm doing the best that I can. Is there some way that you can change the way you try to get money from the world? Well, I've already done everything I can here, and this kind of gets fuzzy. So why am I spending time with the wrong woman comes back to this experience that I've had over and over and over again and I haven't been able to fix. It's the ability to see through what's going on in your mind and also to see through similar levels.
That's kind of how my mind goes. Why shouldn't I do this action? Because it will have adverse consequences. Why are those consequences meaningful to you? Because they will cause me to suffer more than I am already suffering. Well, why does your suffering matter? Because I want to suffer as little as possible while maximizing the absolute amount of good that I can do. Why does that matter? Because I want to try and be a good person. Why does that matter? It just keeps on going. Why does that matter until infinity? And then you go, okay, but then is there even good or evil in the world? And if so, why is there good and evil? And if not, why do you think that? And then you go, I don't think there's good and evil in the world. I think there are people and monsters in the world. And so there's no real good and evil. There is perspective. Because the universe does not really stigmatize itself. It with to have good and evil, it doesn't really have a morality per se. So really, if humans weren't here or life forms weren't here, good and evil wouldn't exist because it's a social construct. It's based off your emotions, how you feel and how you think. It's not an objective truth. Those are just the thought processes. You just abstract onto infinity.
Of complexity in what's going on in the world around you. So it's not about being good, it's about getting it. Moving up in the
Or is it
levels
into
does not
infinity? I don't
always
know.
make you more effective. In fact, this level is famous for making people into hippies. This is the point in development where you begin to understand that everyone has their own way of seeing things. And so, who's to say what we should and should not do?
Hmm.
This is an illustration of an interaction from each level. This girl is getting validation from a guy that she's not interested in. So she knows how to get the validation, and then she stands back and she can plan how to give less to get even more. And then she looks at that and asks, well, is that the right thing to do? Not really. But am I going to do it anyway in this circumstance because I think it would be
Why
better
would you
overall?
call her
So
that
that's in
though?
order. Wanting something, knowing how to get it from someone, knowing how to control the interaction,
Gee.
knowing whether that's right or wrong according to the rules that you live by, and
Uh-huh.
then becoming the author of your own sense of right and wrong. And then when you take another step back to this hippie level, it's like, well, who is anyone to judge my choices? My choices are right for me, and so there isn't really such a thing.
That is I think that's a very dangerous way of thinking. And I have thought this way myself. When I was like when I was still a teenager, it didn't last that long. Lasted a year me thinking like that. And then I said, but I don't like doing that. Uh, Even when I did think like that, I would often get dumbed down by my own morality, and I'd talk myself into not doing things because I'm like, there are consequences to these actions that you are thinking of committing. Do not do this. If you do this, A, B, and C might occur. Probably A, maybe B, definitely C. Okay. So, ew. I don't even have a gap. It doesn't look like I kind of have a gap in this video. I don't have a gap. But yeah, this is a very dangerous way of thinking, and I think that there's a lot of people today who think this way. They're like, my needs matter more than theirs, and nobody can judge me for doing things this way because really everybody's just themselves. Everybody is not good and not evil. Good and evil are social constructs anyway. So I might as well do what I want because everybody else is going to be doing what they want. And I'm not really doing anything bad because everybody else is doing the same thing. Everybody's out for themselves. This can lead to cynicism, by the way. This view is the reason why a lot of people are cynical because they think like everybody, if I'm this way, some people, by the way, not all cynics think this way, but some cynics will be like, if I am this way and I am human and I understand myself to be human, does that not mean that other people also think this way? And then they try to find confirmation bias to confirm their own insecurities that other people are just as bad as them to try and make themselves feel better about doing the things that they do, because this is a very dangerous way of thinking, like I said. But again, nobody, people will judge you for this. I won't judge you. I don't really care. But I'm saying people will judge you for this. It's a very that's all I can really say. That it's I think it's a very dangerous way of thinking, and that you should be careful once you're at this level. I was When I was at this level, I would let logic dictate my reason, and I would be like, maybe let's say I want to leave somebody. Maybe we're at school and they're maybe my best friend. I'm like, I want to go home. I don't even care about what happens here at school, okay? But then maybe he asked me to wait for him. If he asked me to wait for him, because like I was a very this man's let's say it's a one-sided friendship, right? And he's like, wait for me after school, we can walk back home together, and you're like, uh maybe. And then it's after school and you're like, and he's somewhere else, you don't know where he is, and you're like, well, I don't want to have to wait, really, I want to go home. I would think to myself, I'd be like, okay, but if I go home, it might cause him to be distressed or to be heartbroken or feel sad and stuff. And sometimes I would follow those thoughts, and other times I would be like, but I'm willing to risk it. And then I'd leave. But then he'd catch me on the way anyway, so it wouldn't even matter, you know? I'm like, even whether I stay or go, the consequences won't really matter. So I think the thing is, a lot of people don't recognize that their actions have consequences nowadays, so they just go about life. And I'm not just talking about young people, I'm talking about adults. I'm talking about old people. So with old people, it's kind of like though they're not long for this world now anyway. So why would they really care? I guess. But young people and adults, that's tough.
As right and wrong, it's just
It's part of the reason that a lot of relationships are failing because people will just do what they want without considering the other person's feelings, whether that be the woman or the man. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it at
what
that.
works for me. That's why they call that level the individualist. Different
Very,
people
very
go through the
individualistic.
levels differently, and when I went through this one, it really
It's not a
stressed me
bad
out.
thing.
I
Don't
felt like
don't
I couldn't get
it's
my
just
feet on the
dangerous.
ground. I saw so many different ways of seeing the world, so many different philosophies, so many different life choices, and I didn't know how to pick one. And if I can't pick one, then I can't get anywhere. So I would say, I don't know what to do, and people would say, just pick something. And
But it's also not dangerous, by the way. I'm saying it's dangerous to me in thought. In thought, it's dangerous to me. However, whether it's actually dangerous or not, I cannot say. It's probably not dangerous, and it's not safe neither, because the universe, again, those are like constructs that we made. The concept of safety and danger. The universe, it really doesn't care. Things just happen.
I'd say, how do I know what to pick? And they would go, pick something you like. And I would go, how do I know what I like? So I really like to plan things out. I like certainty. But at this level, you realize that you're never going to know what happens until you try it. So it goes what I see, what you see, what works for me, what works for us. And then, hey, look, those people have a different thing that works for them. That's level 5, when you can say, okay, I'm like this because I'm from here, and you're like that because you're from there. And then at level 6, it's like, well, where I'm from is really just myself. Everybody is just from their self. And so how can one self have an idea that's better than any other self? Whereas at an earlier level, you might be able to say something like, well, my dad was an accountant, and so I'm an accountant. That's just what we do, and you don't have to deal with any of this uncertainty. So higher is more.
I do think that's also another thing. As you advance in levels, as your consciousness, like I said, when as you start from direct realism, basically a state of ignorant bliss, to a more indirect realism, a state where you start to see things from multiple perspectives, I think it really starts to get more dangerous the more you go up. Because the more conscious you are and aware of your surroundings in the universe, the more I find that people tend to be sad or depressed at those levels. Of course, this isn't always the case. However, the more conscious and aware you are of things, the typically the more melancholic the world starts to uh, be filtered through your eyes, because you really recognize the darkness of things. And there is a reason for this. There is a reason people say this. It's because humans, by nature, just by biology, they were meant to more vividly picture or recall things that hurt them or made them feel bad or sad than they were to things that made them happy and stuff. This was for survival, right? So even now, when once you're more conscious, you're gonna focus more on the negative things when it comes to life. On the more you're gonna recall the negative things more vividly than the good things or the good times. So yeah, there's that. Oh, I forgot my bracelets. Let me just put these on. Forgive me, putting on my bracelets. But yeah, the more you grow in consciousness, usually the more depressed and sorrowful you become, because you focus more on the negatives. This isn't true for everybody. Some people will focus on the positives, but I'm just talking about biology. Usually, the brain is more wired to remember the bad things than the good. By the way, bad and good are subjective again, so it's really based on your own perspective what your brain is gonna recall more. However, pain will typically be remembered a bit more vividly than pleasure or good times. That's why we have
More
trauma.
complex, but
A little more
complex is not
trauma
always
that is
good.
just very
The way I
necessary.
explain it is that you can have a really good shoe or a really bad car, and I think what I have is a sinking cruise ship.
I have a
So
colliding
if higher
universe.
is
I
not
mean,
always better,
a
then
dying
why
universe.
should we grow? Well, because higher is
Right.
usually better. If everyone was at these lower levels, we would not be able to have grocery stores and electricity. We have a complex world, and it requires complex thinking. And some problems cannot be solved at the level they came from. Everybody watching this is going to have a different fingerprint of development. That means that your different lines or capacities, or the ways that you use your intelligence, are all going to be developed to different levels. It's possible to be very lopsided. For example, you could have your cognitive line all the way up at 9, but your moral line all the way down at 3. You could also be higher up than another person overall, but they're still way better than you at a particular thing. For example, this could be somebody who really understands history and politics to a high degree but has low empathy, and this would be someone who kind of gets it but is great with people. So as I go through them one by one, try to remember where you went through them and what that felt like and where you think you are now. Okay, level 1. I call this survive because it's just basic moment to moment, what do I need? Do I need food? Do I need sleep? It's just my own feelings, and there's no such thing as someone else's mind. If we were living in this level, we would be in small survival bands.
That reminds me of solipsism. The belief that one's mind is the only thing that is sure, the only mind that is sure to exist. Not that it's the only mind that does exist, it's the only mind that's sure to exist. Solipsism is an interesting thing, people. This is very solipsistic. I'm guessing that's how they call it. Solipsistic? Solip. Yeah, whatever.
And we would not be thinking much about each other's thoughts. We would be doing what we must in order to survive. Level 2 I called Connect, because now you can think about what is in someone else's mind. What does this person want or need? Primitive people at this level will sometimes do rain dances or throw virgins in a volcano. I'm not sure if that's real, but it's the kind of thing you would expect to see, because at level 2, you're realizing, okay, I have a mind and I need things, and other people have minds and they need things, so maybe it's not raining because we haven't pleased someone in the sky. Maybe the volcano is angry because it wants something, and what do I want? Virgins. So level 2 is all about what I do affects what other people think about me and what they do for me. Basically, like this. If we were living at level 2, we would be in small tribal groups, and we would be focused on safety and security and maintaining functional habits and dependable practices just day to day. Level 3 I called Control. This level is still very popular in modern society. So at level 1, I have a mind with feelings and needs, and at level 2, I know that other people have minds with feelings and needs, and sometimes maybe I think a volcano does too. And at level 3, now I know that other people are aware that other people are aware that they have feelings and needs. So I know that these people have a relationship to each other the same way that I have a relationship to this and to this and to this and to this. Now I know he has a relationship to her. So instead of just direct connections, this creates social situations. Here is a woman seeing man bad on her phone, and then she sees the man in her life and goes, oh, wait a minute, if man bad, then maybe that man bad. And then at level 3, you would step back and say, well, what do I do about this situation? Why is he being bad, and what can I do about this relationship? If we were living at this level, we would be living in something like the Roman Empire, a mythic, feudal, and exploitative empire. You see this level a lot in things like the mafia and in sports teams, firemen, police, military. So even though these levels 2 and 3 involve thinking about thinking, it's mostly just for the purpose of getting what you want and having power over others. Level 4 I called Belong because the primary drive is to fit in. And that drive is motivated by what they call second-person perspective. So again, at level 1, you have your own feelings, urges, and needs. At level 2, you see those of others and you can react to them, but it's still all about what those feelings mean to you. And at level 3, you understand that you're in a complex social web of relationships, and you can react to those relationships and exert control over your situation. And at level 4, that's when you realize everyone is in their own situation. That's where we get the classic folk wisdom of don't judge somebody until you've walked a mile in his shoes. You are in this situation over here, but imagine if you were him in this situation over here. Maybe you would have done what he did too. That doesn't come online until you get the second-person perspective at level 4. When level 4 was brand new, it was basically medieval empires. It says mythic empires here, nation-states. Basically large groups of people that lived by a set of rules that they shared. As opposed to the do what you want mentality of level 3, level 4 focuses on good versus evil. The entry to that level is called the Diplomat because of the way that they focus on acceptable behavior and social norms. That's their way of getting over the problems from the previous stage. You can tell when second-person perspective is coming online in children because they start looking in the mirror more. They start to realize, oh, I have other people looking at me the way that I look at other people and I have feelings about them. They're looking at me and having feelings about me, so I better be up to their expectations. Level 4 is the beginning of what we traditionally refer to as morality. Here again is the woman seeing man bad on her phone, and then she feels like, well, maybe this man is bad because my phone said so. She's projecting that onto him, having a negative experience, and then deciding what to do about it. I'm going to break up with this guy. He must be bad because I felt like it was true when I saw it on my phone. And then out here, she takes a step back and looks at herself as if she is a second person, which is why they call it second person perspective, and thinks, is that the right thing to do? This is the first point where it becomes obvious that consciousness is important, because a lot of people see things on their phones or on TV, and it gives them a feeling, and then they see that feeling coming from others, and then they do something about that relationship. So they might begin treating somebody poorly because they saw something on their phone that made them feel like, well, if that's happening here, it must be happening here too. And it's not until you slow down enough to get to level 4 that you can take a step back and ask yourself, is this a valuable process? The way that level 4 typically functions is through conformity and agreement. I believe this is the wrong way to behave. I believe this is the wrong way to behave. Agreeing on what's right and wrong and creating a set of rules and following them can solve some of these earlier problems, but also there are an infinite number of ways to decide what is right and wrong. You can have this set of rules over here or this set of rules over here, and that's where level 5 comes in. Level 5 introduces objective observation as a value. Basically, okay, you guys think A, B, C is right, and you guys think X, Y, Z is right. Well, let's figure out which one is better. And in order to do that, you have to take another step back into a third-person perspective. So again, the first 3 levels are all about me, and then level 4 is, if I was another person in my culture, how would I view my behavior? And then level 5 is another step back. If I was an alien or a stranger, how would I view my culture? This also enables you to view other cultures and sets of social norms. That's why it's global. It's the first time that you can go, oh, I get why they're like that, because they're from somewhere else. Level 5 has only really been around for a few hundred years, and it is basically where we get science and the assembly line and other forms of modern conveniences. Level 6 is where things get really fun. You might remember how it went for me. Level 5 is into objective observation, but level 6 recognizes the role of the perceiver. A different perceiver is going to equal a different perception. That brings in the fourth person perspective. So down at 1, you have me and my needs, the way I relate to others, and the way I get my way in my social situation. And then you take a step back. What does my behavior look to others around me? And what rules do we make about that? And then another step back. What would our set of rules look like to a different group of people? And then level 6, you step back again, and well, the way that you are looking is going to determine what it looks like. So when you look here, you'll see one thing, and when you look here, you'll see another thing, and when you look here, you'll see a third thing, because of who you are and where you came from. So there isn't really any way to objectively observe. Not being able to objectively observe can feel weird. Level 6 is very new. There were a few philosophers talking at that level in the 1800s, but it didn't really show up in mainstream society until 1960s America. So because the way that you're looking determines what you're going to see, that means there are multiple perspectives that are valid, because we all have a unique personal subjective reality that's not observable to others. Basically, how do I know that the red that I see is the same as the red that you see? Maybe my red is your green. From the...
Oh, gee, I've done this once to my to some people at college. I was like, guys, we were having a conversation. I'm like, one thing that we can say, guys, though, one thing that I know how to start a debate. I said I'm gonna start a debate with you guys. I think I was like, I want you guys to. Here's a mystery for you guys. I want you guys. I can't remember what I exactly said, but basically, I wanted them to understand that perspective is a thing and that there is no true objective way of viewing things or thinking about things. There is no real way that would be universally acceptable to do things, or I haven't seen one. Let me just say that. I haven't seen one. And to prove this, I was like, what color is this book that I pulled out? Whatever book. Or maybe I could go, what color is this water bottle? Yeah, what color is it? They're like, it's gray and black. I'm like, no, it's blue and yellow. And then or blue and red. Let's say it's blue and red, and it's kind of tinted purple where it starts to where maybe around here it's tinted purple because that's where the colors converge or whatever. I don't know. It's a like cool little thing. Then I'm like, they're like, no, it's black. We can all three of us can agree that it is black. Then I'm like, yes, but you cannot see through anybody else's eyes. Hence, how can you be expected to take that as objective truth if you don't know that if they're seeing the same color as you? Because to say that this is the same color is one thing, but to prove that this is the same color is another thing. For you two to agree that it's the same color is one thing, but because neither of you can possess the other's vision, you can neither accept nor deny that it is the color that you're both agreeing on. Because maybe her version of blue is my version of red. Maybe we see red differently, but we call it the same thing, essentially. Because we've been raised to call this color this certain way, even because you can't describe color. You honestly can't describe color, or not that I know of, anyway. You can describe like lights in ways, I think, but even then.
Fourth person perspective, there's no way to know. Level 6 is a really good example of why higher development is not always necessarily better. It is a very high degree of moral development, recognizing the validity of everyone's perspective, but let's say, for example, that there's a problem going on down here. Let's say that this guy did something that is considered morally wrong in this culture. But wait a minute, he says, that's how we do it where I'm from. So when level 6 goes crazy, they start saying things like, we can't make this guy follow these rules just because he's here. He has these rules where he's from. And who are you to judge which set of rules is better? We should recognize everybody's unique perspective. And that can and often does give people the idea, I guess I can just do whatever I want because who are you to judge? That's why we have problems like this. And yeah, some of these people are unfortunate, and that's sad, but some of them are just doing whatever they want, and we now have laws that don't distinguish between them because who are you to judge? So at this point, there is this white break in the chart, and that's because we are moving up to second tier consciousness. And what that means is that level 7 is the first level that can understand and include all the previous ones. At level 6, they still insist that they're correct and no one else is. For example, at level 4, you might have a Christian church and a Muslim mosque next door arguing over who has the truth.
Again, I'd like to pause this one more time. I say one more time, but I'm probably going to pause this a bit more. I'm an overthinker. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for pausing so much. I'm sorry. But let me just go on this little rant for a little bit. It's kind of like what I was talking about in the beginning. Even in the beginning, I said we're going from in direct realism to indirect as we go further up the levels. From what I thought, how I thought this video was gonna progress. And so far, it seems somewhat true. We're going from the mundane to the abstract, to the super abstract and such. And when you abstract a lot, eventually you get to a certain point where you're like, the only thing that I can say with a certain level of confidence or certainty is that I know nothing. And in accepting that, you also think to yourself, thus, if I know nothing, I can teach people nothing. Thus, I cannot change anybody's mind, but I can, however, make them think. And so that's my goal in many situations. I don't tell people how to think. I present ideas to people, and I'm like, figure it out for yourself. Kind of like in my with the case of my friends, right? I presented that situation to them because I wanted to see how they would interpret it. They all denied it. Not even friends necessarily, but they all denied it. They all said, "What are you talking about? We all can see that this table is brown. This table is literally brown." I'm using the table as an example now. They're like, "This table is brown, bro." I'm like, "No, what if it's burnt sienna? What if it's a burnt sienna color, huh? How about that?" And they're like, no, 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 we all agree on this. You're just crazy. And then I'm like, well, maybe I am. The thing is, I don't think that even I'm right, right? I'm like, I could very well be wrong. Maybe this color is certainly this way, and maybe there's certainly a way to perceive reality in an objective sense. And I even say that I'm like, I would even tell people when I present ideas to them, this is just an idea of mine. You don't need to follow it. You don't need to accept it. It is an idea. You can discard it or you can keep it. It is your choice. I'm not saying that this idea is the right way of thinking or if it's the only way of thinking. In reality, how it goes is there is your way of doing things, there is my way of doing things. But as for the correct way of doing things, it doesn't exist. So I can neither judge nor tell you how to think because it is your life and I know nothing in truth. Maybe I know something, maybe I don't. I can't say. That's how far in I am.
Through faith. But at level 6, we can all get along, we just need more understanding, when that's not what either of those groups wants. So even if level 6 says that they're about equality, they're saying we all need to be equal even if we don't want to. And it's not until level 7 that we understand how to actually give each previous level what it wants to have so that they can live in harmony. At level 7, this fourth-person perspective gets expanded through time, which creates awareness of the self as a history of your own experience. At level 6, everyone has their own view, and so who's to say who's right and who's wrong? But at level 7, you take yet another step back and you realize that that unique view didn't come from nowhere, it developed over time, and everybody else is developing over time. So at level 6, because we are all the same, everybody belongs wherever, but at level 7, since we know we all change over time, people belong where they fit the best. So for example, does this behavior fit here? If not, then it has to go where it belongs. And if it does, then we can all learn something new from it. That's why I called it Harmonize, because it's no longer about radical inclusiveness, it's about recognizing interrelated systems and how they are either synergistic or clashing. Radical relativism and radical inclusiveness, they sound nice, but they do create a lot of clashing. People who are at level 7 tend to naturally recognize development without studying this chart or any of the stuff it came from, and it's pretty fun to see. I asked one of my life coaching clients a question, and he said, well, a little while ago, I would have answered it like this. And before then, I would have even answered it like that. And maybe a few years ago, I would have answered it like this. But now... And so he told me all about his development through the levels as his answer to the question. As far as I know, there is not yet any large collection of people at level 7. You can find a lot of these people in San Francisco, and you can find a lot of these people in New York, and you can find a lot of these people in Alabama, and so on. So let me know if you think that you're up at this level. I'm trying to build a time army so we can all get together and work on all this from up here. And I'm not really sure if these numbers are accurate. I get more confident the lower it goes, but I know I enjoy meeting them because their ability to naturally balance and synergize things and put everything where it belongs means that they're going to be instrumental in solving a lot of the problems caused by the previous levels. The levels get more difficult to explain the higher they go. You may have noticed there's a lot of words here. And level 8 is pretty rare. I don't meet a lot of people who are stably at it, and even when I do, I don't think they spend a lot of their time there. So level 8 appears when you take another step back from this, and we are now witnessing ourselves change over time in the moment. As you behave, as you think and feel, new parts of you emerge from the ether. That's what it means to be construct aware. It means that you're watching your own mind construct itself as you go. So at level 8, you can see all these different parts of yourself kind of coming out to play. For example, you could look at an image of a donut or a donut sitting on a plate, and you can go, I'm feeling many things right now. I'm feeling hunger for the donut because it's good, but I'm also feeling a sense of guilt from one time that I ate a whole box of donuts that were not meant for me, and then somebody gave me social punishment and shame for that, and I also got a stomachache because I ate too many. I'm recalling that memory as I look at this, and it's influencing what I want to do. So now that I'm aware of all that going on in me, do I want to listen to it or not? Do I want to be the kind of person who just has a donut anyway because I'm an adult and I can do what I want? And it might sound silly when you're talking about donuts, but imagine that this is something like global politics. Or even an interpersonal relationship. Like, yeah, I saw this on my phone and it gave me a feeling, and I'm aware of where that feeling is in myself, and I'm aware that I'm projecting it onto this person, and I'm aware of my impulse for what I should do about it, and I'm aware of what my culture says I should do about it, and then all of that is wrapped up in objective observation and the story of who I am and how I got here over time and how I'm viewing the event because of my personal history. Do you see how that gives you a lot more power to change your behavior in situations like this? Imagine if more people could see something and then see their own reaction to it instead of just reacting, and then know where that reaction comes from in terms of their history and their culture. Think how much more.
I did have this idea at like from the ages of 16 and 18. I was hell bent on this idea. Well, not hell bent necessarily, and it was really 16 to 18. I guess it wasn't just mainly 16. I was like, I can clearly. Well, no, it wasn't even 16. I've had this idea since I was 8. Cause like at 8 I would see people doing things, and I'm like, but why are they doing that when it's so very, 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 very not bad for them, but it won't do much when it won't really do much good. It won't benefit them. Why are they doing that? And I'm like, and I know, I understand that we all have our likes and dislikes, but that is not gonna give you much of anything. In fact, it might worsen your problem. I look at people like that, and but I would go, I would react in this way in this situation. Why are they reacting so differently than I would? And that's not bad. Maybe my own reaction is bad. Maybe my own reaction is because when I was a kid, I did believe in good and bad. When I was like 8, I did believe in good and bad. It was when I was 10 where the idea got lost on me, and I said, there is no true good and bad because the universe does not care. And if I were to ask the universe what it thinks of good and bad is, it wouldn't even necessarily know or care about what that is exactly. Or so I think. That's what I would have said at like the ages of 10. Whereas at 8, I would have been like, this is really bad and this is really good. So why are people doing this? Whereas at 10, I'm like, there's no true good, there's no true bad. People are just they're just doing whatever the fudge they want, and their actions have consequences, but they can't always perceive those consequences. They can't always understand that those actions will have so and so consequences, so they just do what they want. Also, I need to fix my lighting. Is this too bright actually? Give me a second. Give me a second. Sorry. Give me a second. Let's just let's just lower these blinds a little bit. Okay. Oh, gee, man, I have a big ass head. Look at that motherfucker. Oh my gosh, bro. Oh, fudge. Look at that noggin. Jeez Louise, brother. Them. Oh, I. You see that noggin, bro? Fudge. Hey, it is what it is. Um, got a 5 hit on me, boy. I don't got no 4 hit. I got a 5 hit. This might even be a 6 hit for all I know, bro. uh, But yeah, we all develop over time, and we change over time. Our decisions change over time. Even in the current moment, you are changing. You're never truly the same person. This go when I was like 16, I went over this idea again, and I was like, in truth, everything we do and say changes us to some degree. It might be a degree that's so small that it's barely recognizable, or even significant, that we don't notice. And some changes are more recognizable. However, every single change kills the past version of you, the version you were before you had that thought or before you did that thing. That version of you is essentially dead. This is a new you. Every single thought you have changes you on some level. Some things change you to a level that's so small that it's almost insignificant. However, that's what I say, right? I say everything kills you because you are never the same person. You are always a different person because you were always dying and being constructed again, in a sense. That's how like my 16-year-old me was like, I am not the same me I was before this and this happened. And although I still act the same to a large degree, I am not that person. However, this I can also see this being a bad thing. Because some people will take this idea and go, well, I'm not the same person as I was then now, so my crimes should not matter. I'm not the same person that I was a few seconds ago, so my crimes should not matter. Some crimes are so bad that it's gonna take a lot of convincing for people to actually think that you're different. Even if you are genuinely different and trying, some people, it's not. Some crimes are just they're not they're not worth committing. Many crimes really are not worth committing, but some crimes you can understand why they're committed. Some crimes are just how are irredeemable to an extent. But I'm not talking about me by saying some crimes are irredeemable. I'm talking in the eyes of the people, in the eyes of just people in general. Some crimes are just they're unforgivable, and some people will forgive you for those crimes, and some people won't. You can see this in like certain communities, like for example, famous people. Some famous people will like do things that are so out of line and things that are so bad, crimes that are supposed to be irredeemable or unforgivable, and a lot of people will just stick by them and say, yeah, they did that, but they probably had a good reason, or they did that, so what? It's just an interesting thing. uh Humans. Sorry. Now let's get back to it, right?
More power that would give us not to just react in the moment. That's why you should be thinking about thinking. Anyway, level 9 is very hard to describe. I do think that I spend some time up at this level, and the way that it feels to me is like all I'm doing ever is watching and wishing, and that's all I've ever been doing. At these first 3 levels, you are the main character, and at level 4, you understand everyone is their own main character. And then you understand that everyone's watching a different show because everyone is a different show, and that show is constantly evolving and changing over time. And at level 8, you're just watching the show happen. You're not even identified with being the show anymore. You're just watching yourself be. So when my mind is up here, it's like, okay, I'm seeing myself, seeing my history and where I came from and what I'm like and what I do, which is made of all this stuff, all the memories and habits from the lower levels. I'm watching myself, observing my emergence over time, interacting with the present moment. I know where I'm from and what that has made me like, and I know what's happening now, and I'm watching them come together, and I'm looking at myself, looking at that. And so how you do the looking is what's important at this level. It's like, what are you looking at? I think you need to be looking at this part right now. I think you need to be looking at this function in your life. Maybe you're looking from here when you should be looking from here. So it's like what I'm watching is watching itself. And again, here you would be watching your personal needs, and here you would be watching the reactions of others, and here you would be watching your situation that you're in, and here you would be watching what others expect from you, and here you would be watching observable reality, and here you'd be watching where you're from to know how you interpret
That's what I
things,
was saying. You just
and
get
here
more
you'd be
detached and
watching what
detached
are all
from
your
reality,
habits
and
and
you
pieces
forget
of you put together, and how
certain
are
situations
they
in reality as you go
interpreting
up and
your
level up in
reality,
levels.
and here you'd be watching those habits and pieces coming together in the moment and sometimes being surprised by what they do. And then here I feel a responsibility for knowing where to watch those things, if that makes any
Damn,
sense.
boy,
So
that's
yeah, that's
good.
this chart and how
Good
it works, the
video.
levels part of it anyway.
I'm
The
sorry.
rest of it I'll get into another time. And if you want to move up the levels, the best way to do that is just sit with your thoughts and think about them and figure out where they come from. Here's another example of what that looks like. So sometimes I worry that my little scribbly drawings are kind of embarrassing to show to 200,000 people. So why am I feeling the embarrassment? Well, I guess I'm worried that it's going to have some kind of a negative impact on me. What kind of negative impact would it have? Well, I guess maybe people would not like my channel or might say some bad things about me because I don't have more sophisticated graphic processes. Well, why would it be so bad if that happened? Well, then I might lose out on opportunities that I could otherwise have if I had better looking graphics. Well, how do you know you would lose out on those opportunities? That's a good question because so far I've been doing pretty good with my scribbly whatever this is. So then if you don't have any evidence that you're going to lose out on opportunities because you're doing this, then what's wrong with it? Okay, I guess problem solved. I can do this for now.
The question is just
And that's why I called
rage,
this
what,
level
why,
complete.
how.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this presentation on levels. I will do another one that's going to be really excruciatingly
When,
long at some point, but
sometimes,
I'll make it fun.
where, sometimes.
And the video's done. You can close. You can go away if you want. I'm just going to ramble for a minute.
Alright,
I'm going to
I'll
do
listen
a
to the
longer
ramble.
thing on levels somewhere down the road. Very soon I'm going to do self-maximize. It's going to be about how to make yourself the best possible partner so people like you and then want to keep you. I'm going to be talking about itemized delusion. I'm going to break people up into groups and talk about the general delusions that they have about themselves and the dating market. I'm going to talk about the not people zone. Oh, I'm going to be arguing with Mac and Murphy soon.
Mac and Murphy? Who was that? Well, that was a great video. That was a very great video. If you want to check this channel out, the original video, again, I hope I said this at the beginning. If I didn't, oh, gee. But, the original video will be in the description. Check it out. Check out Man's channel. I'm gonna be reacting to more of his stuff. So watch out for that if you're subscribed, or if you're not. If you just like my reaction, I'm sorry. Well, see ya. Wouldn't want to be. Would I want to be? I don't know. But I'ma see ya.